I am going to start with my seat reupholstery video. A couple moving parts in here that I'll show you. First, you'll need the frame. I don't have that in the picture right now, but you'll need the frame of the seat. If there was any problems or any repairs or anything that needed to be done to that, you need to take care of those repairs. Get them done and get it painted. Now I painted mine in epoxy primer since it's so good for corrosion resistance. But you can do regular spray paint or something, just a couple coats. Make sure that gets covered. So you need a couple kits. All the kits that I got were from Newton Commercial out of Britain. I ordered them from Spitbits, but they came from Newton. And you have essentially 3 kits that you get here. So I'll show you the pieces, parts. One is called the Squab kit. The Squab kit is for the back of the seat. That's what they call it, I guess, in Britain. A little interesting. You got this big heavy stuff here. I had showed you this stuff before. It's almost like a synthetic horsehair. You get a piece of batting, this cotton stuff. I'll show you where that goes. And that was about it for the Squab kit, or Squab kit. Now, I ordered these in 2015, and somewhere along the lines they changed the kit, and they've added some more things, and they've made them a little differently, and I'll explain that as I go through in case you have an older kit. The newer kits also come with this stuff, and this, what the kit refers to it as, brushed nylon laminated foam, 3 millimeter. So this is almost like a crafting foam. It's about 3 millimeters and it's laminated, and there's foam in the center. And this stuff is this Bozell, place out of Maine, inner foam. Plus, you can see it's got a cute little pocketbook on there. So this is for making like the little spongy parts of fabric, pocketbooks and things like that. I guess pocketbooks is where they're mostly used. But this is 36 by 58 inches. The design here is to cover both of the backs of the seat frame, and I think all it really does is just provide some subtle cushioning between the metal of the seat frame and the back of the seat cover. So anyway, more than enough to do this, but I was able to find it. I'll put a link in the description. So there's that. The other thing is the actual seat vinyl covers themselves. This is for the back or the squab. This is for the seat itself. It's turned inside out right now because that's where I'll need to be. Now these are handed. If you can kind of look, this side over here is thinner, or not as wide as this side over here. So this is the driver's seat. The passenger seat is opposite to that. So the fatter part goes towards the transmission tunnel, and the skinnier part would go towards the door. And they're padded and everything on the inside, very nicely put together. And then the final piece is the seat foam, the seat bottom foam, and you get a multi-piece, or excuse me, a multi-foam bottom piece there, and then this cardboard strengthener piece that eventually will go under here like that. Now you also need the bottom cage that should be with your seat. Same thing with that. You want to preserve, paint, clean that up, do any repairs that need to be done. There's little spot welds on that sometimes pop. You want to take care of all that stuff beforehand. I won't go into that. I've already done all that. So we'll get started with the squab, is what the instruction manual tells you to start with first. So we'll get going with that. So first thing we're going to start with is the seat back, like I said, the squab. So we're going to get the back of the seat covered. Now what goes in here out of the factory is 2 slats of wood that everything can be stapled to. So obviously over the years that wood breaks down, gets all nasty, and in this particular case was a bunch of chips and everything like that. So you've got 6 holes in the back here that are arrayed. I've drilled those out to about 3/16 of an inch. I've got 3/16 inch pop rivets here, and I've got real thin Luan. So I kind of guessed on the Luan thing, it calls for a 3 millimeter thick ply or hardboard, and I figured the Luan would be okay, and again it's about 3 millimeters. So you need 2 strips, 20 centimeters by 2 centimeters. So again, this is in British instructions, so it's all going to be metric. So about an inch and a half by I don't know, 8 inches or 10 inches. So the Luan's really nice because it's very flexible. It'll allow me to make the curve here. So I'm just going to mark out those pieces real quick. This whole this is a 4x2 sheet of Luan. It cost me a whopping $3.50. You can try to do other stuff. Maybe you're going to be stapling into this with a staple gun. So we'll see how it works out for me, but I'm hoping that it'll be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out 2 pieces 20 centimeters by 2 centimeters and cut them out real quick, and I'll be back. There are the little strips of Luan fit in. I had to cut this one down a little bit, 1 or 2 centimeters just to fit, and I'm going in between the brace bar here, whatever that's called, and this piece in the center. And what that is that's the bracket. These are threaded, these 2 holes here. That's the bracket where the seat clip goes in from the back, and that's just to allow the seat to pivot up and down. It keeps it locked in when it's not pivoted. So I've got some 3/16 inch rivets here, and I've drilled the holes out in the back to 3/16. I'm also going to mark the holes from the back into the Luan and drill holes through those so that they don't get torn up when I go to pop rivet them, and then I'll get these pieces pop riveted in. Now the holes on these are pretty deep. I'm using a China marker that I got the tip way out on, grease pencil, whatever you call it. Alright, got my holes marked, 3/16 inch bit, gonna drill them out. Alright, so the instructions have you pop riveting from the seat side, the interior of the seat side, down through. So that's what I'll do. Alright, so you can see that the pop rivet's just pulling through on the other side. I'm not real crazy about that. So these are 3/16 pop rivets with a 1/4 inch grip. I also bought bigger ones with a 1/2 inch grip. I may try them both, but I'm going to give the 1/2 inch ones a shot first. You can see that that's another distance bigger, and that's just to allow it to go penetrate deeper into it. Alright, a little bit of difficulty getting the pop rivets planted or seated, and you want to make sure that you do get it seated and try to get that strip to follow the curve as much as possible. I am going to wet this down a little bit, the wood strips. You can see how the wood strips are in there. The pop rivet's not popped yet, obviously, because they're not broken off, but I just, the 3/16 holes, grab these are aluminum pop rivets, kind of grab that pretty good, so it allows me to wrap it around. I do have a crack in the wood right here, but I don't think I'm going to really worry about that. So I will go ahead and get these pop rivets in there, and hopefully stuff doesn't come flying apart. Here's the protrusion on the back here. You can see that it sticks out pretty good, and I'll show you what I'm going to do about that here in a little bit. So it's under a little bit of tension, but seems to have worked. So now the problem, or the potential problem, is you got these pop rivets sticking out back here. The knob of the pop rivet, that little end, the bulb on the top there, has receded into this until it hit that metal point, and that's what broke the pop rivet. That's, nothing surprising here. That's how they're supposed to work. But now you got these big extra pieces of metal hanging out back here, so I'm just going to go by with a grinder real quick and just kind of, when I get to that point, just take them off and try to flush them up pretty close. You don't want to go all the way flush because then you destroy it. Alright, that's done. Definitely recommend wetting the things first, and I also probably cut this one down a little too far because this is under tension here, so that's going to stick out a little bit the entire time. However, it is covered, so not that big of a deal. But definitely would allow it to soak for a little bit, give you a little bit more pliability even with the real thin Luan. Alright, so there's that, and moving on. Alright, so this is that foam. I cut it in half just to have a piece that's a little bit easier to handle. But I'm not going to cut it again, obviously more than enough to cover the back seat of the car. So I'm going to go ahead and spray all this with spray adhesive, just that same Super 77 stuff that I used for the crash pads, the instructions do say to prevent, trying to prevent spray adhesive in here, in the reinforcement press. And I think that's just so you don't show the big cross, the big X through the back of the seat. So all I'm going to do is run a strip of tape or two along that to try to cover it up from the spray adhesive. So I'll spray the back of this thing, spray this thing, let it tack up for a couple minutes, and then go ahead and put this down and then trim it to fit. So this will take a couple minutes of prep work here, so I'll knock this out. Got the seat back masked up. I taped off up here just to prevent some incidental contact over there, so I'm going to cover this whole area. Got some paper down just to kind of protect my moving blanket, and I'm going to spray the whole portion of the foam pad there. I'll let that tack up a little bit so I'm not handling it when it's completely wet, and then I'll take the tape off and we'll start to lay down the foam. Alright, not too bad. Unfortunately, I got some crease. I got a pretty good crease right here, and all these folding creases, but I'd rather take my chances and let them show than to rip it up again. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this away so I can sit the seat up. Alright, so you can see the outline of the huge amount of leftover. So what I'm going to do now is just essentially go around about a 2mm strip here, fold it over and tack it into here. It says you want a little bit of fold over, so I'm going to go ahead and try to achieve that. Alright, so now it's trimmed. I'm going to run a quick little thing of glue around here. Let that tack up, and then I'll bend that over. Alright, we'll let that dry for a little bit. Next up is the backing, the horsehair stuff. Now this is not formed, obviously, it's just a big square, but you do have to cut it a little bit to fit, and it's just barely enough to fit in here. So you don't want to cover this strip because you're going to be stapling stuff to that, but you can see that it's going to flare up. So I am going to bring it down to that, but there's a little bit of wood peeking out over here, so I'm going to essentially cut this in a slight arc and then come around with it and try to get it formed up, and then go ahead and cut it. Now I can't decide if I want to cut it or glue it first on the edges and the top here. Let me think about that for a sec. Alright, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to form it as close as I can get it, trace around the outlines of stuff, and then cut it. So I got a Sharpie right here. The first part I'm going to do is down here, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. Again, I don't want to cover the wood, so I'll just use the Sharpie to kind of eyeball the trace out there. We'll cut that. Alright, that little sliver out of there, this stuff is almost, it's almost greasy. Kind of weird. Alright, so you can see the wood's exposed down there. Now what I'll do is I'm going to try as best as I can here, get it to fit up, and then go around and trace out again. Now look here, you can see there's a big overlap over there. I don't want that, or a big blank spot over there. I don't want that, so I need to get this thing as centered up as I can. I wish they had made it about a ½ inch wider. And it is square. I did check that to make sure I didn't mess myself up with the rectangle or anything. But I think it'll be okay. Alright, you can just barely see the outline here. So I'll go ahead and cut that. Be a good idea to have a really sharp pair of scissors. These aren't very sharp. Alright, so I got that cut out now. Fits pretty good. I have the little wings on the edges there. I gotta get rid of those. Got that formed up. Go ahead and get some spray adhesive on both sides of all this stuff and get that thing sprayed in. Alright, we'll let that get tacky. One thing I did notice, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but if you look at the flatness, I guess you could say, of the coarseness of the string and the strands on that side versus on this side, that other side looks a little bit tighter. I'm not sure if you can really tell that, or flatter. So this is the side that I'm putting to the squab because I figure that's a little bit more surface area and it'll grip a little bit more. This is another one of those where I think once you get this stuff on here, you got to be pretty sure that you have it centered up, because it's so stringy and everything, and the glue will tack that it'll tend to come apart on you if you try to move it. So I'm off just a little bit. I overcut a little bit on this side. You can see there it's a little too much of the padding showing, but I think it'll be okay. So there's that. So now the next step is a little weird. What I'm going to do is put a real heavy, it says a heavy coating of glue around the edges, the edge of this. And then when the glue is almost dry, you want to press it down. And all you're essentially trying to do here is create a tapered edge. So the glue has got to get inside the strands, not on top. So I want the glue to go inside in here. So that's why I think it's got to be especially heavy. So it's going to be a little tricky to spray, I think, but it shouldn't be too bad. So we got that glue on there. I'll let this one dry for a solid 2 minutes or so. The next step is this cotton wadding, it's called, and essentially it's cotton in between real thin fabric, probably very easy to pull apart, so you want to be careful. But essentially what this is going to do is this is going to around the edge of the seat here and transition from the back to the front. So you're going to fold this, I'm going to fold this in half and put it and glue it around the whole outside of the seat once I get this this clamped down in here, and then move on from there. And we're getting pretty close to putting the rear vinyl cover on. Alright, well, I think that worked okay. Sorry if my camera angles aren't the best. You can see it's compressed a little bit, and I think that's really all I'm going for, is to just have a more subtle transition from the fatness of the pad here into the back, so that it's more rounded. And I'm alright with the way it sits right now, at least until I'm not. Alright, so now we're going to deal with this cotton pad here. I'm going to put the seat on the floor for a second. Now this is a pretty long pad, as you can see, and essentially we're going to fold it over long ways and glue it. Got the laid out here. I'm going to spray it with the adhesive. This is one of those where you're going to need to be especially careful, because as soon as you touch it, it's going to lock down and it's going to tear, because this stuff, this cotton wadding on the protective cover on it is pretty flimsy. All right, by the way, this adhesive, you can use acetone. One, to clean the tip of the spray gun or the spray nozzle, which is pretty important because it will gum up on you pretty quick. And two, to clean your fingers, because you will get it on you. All right, so now I'm going to try to carefully fold this over without messing it up. Get about halfway. Do it lightly, hopefully, and it won't press down hard enough to start to lock in. All right, not too bad. Now the object here is we're going to spray glue on the sheet here on the wadding, and then on this edge and on the back edge, and we're going to lay the wadding over top, and it's going to create a padded corner here. So I'm going to kind of dry run this just to see what it looks like, where I need to lay the padding down. It's going to go just like this, trying to split the difference here. And then you fold it over, give you a nice heavy pad. My camera angle is really bad. I'm going to fold the wadding in half, long ways here, just so I can find the center and I can mark it so that I know I'm going to lay it down in the center here, just so I have enough on either side. I don't want to put it in the wrong spot and then be off too far. So now I know I got that. Go ahead and lay this guy back out. Spray its length, and then we're going to spray the peripheral of 30 to 40 millimeters is what it says, so a good 3 or 4 centimeters, so it's a pretty wide spray there. Go ahead and press this down again, get any last little bit of compression out of it. Got some. Alright, it should be good. Find my line here that I made for the center line of this thing. I tell you, this not real easy with this, dealing with all this adhesive stuff, to make sure that you're not going to mess it up. I'm just trying to keep it centered as much as I can. And then folding it over. Alright, so that's not too bad. Happy with that. Now it does say you want to take out any excess, obviously, so I'll use scissors to cut that, but it also talks about any bulges that you have, and I got a couple bulges here. I'll show you. Kind of close it up here for you. Kind of like a bulge there, and definitely a bulge there, and all I'm going to do is put the scissors in there and just hack it out. What I was doing right there is just kind of pinching the stuff and getting it to come up for you, and then running the scissors in that pinched area. And it will flatten that out pretty good. I'm using this frame piece here kind of as my bottom, I guess you could say, so I'm trying to cut everything even to that. But I got that on. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with the way that came out. So now, there's a little trick involved here, and I know a lot of people have mentioned this when they talk about doing reupholstery on my favorite form and everything. But I'm going to lay some plastic over top of this. Now the instructions say to use the bag that the squab kit came in. Unfortunately, I chucked it, but I do have a trash bag, which is what most people use anyway, so I'm just going to use that. And I'm going to glue plastic over top of this, and what that's going to provide is an area for sliding so that you don't minimize the friction between the inside of the vinyl cover and this stuff, because that'll all get bunched up and everything. It's supposedly a real pain in the rear. Alright, just a regular 13-gallon trash bag here from the grocery store. Going to go ahead and cut it from top to bottom, and then cut it across the bottom. Alright, so now that'll lay over the seat like this, but I don't need all this plastic in here, so now I'm just going to essentially cut a strip out of it that's wide enough, probably about half of the width of the trash bag here. Cut a strip out so that it covers all that spot. Alright, got the trash bag here. It's probably, I don't know, 8 inches wide or so. I'm going to spray adhesive along on that, and then I'm going to spray a coat of adhesive around that batting, and then put them on. Don't need too much glue this time. Calls for a light coating. Obviously go through a lot of adhesive. Alright, I still got this black mark here, and the seam on the trash bag is kind of convenient, I guess, so it's going to allow me to see where the center goes. Alright, unfortunately, trash bag wasn't long enough here, so I'm kind of cheating real quick. Get some of the scraps